Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
Welcome. I am FINALE Norton, and today is Friday, October 13th. Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch. Good trouble then and now. We have a fantastic show planned for you today. We have Miss Margaret Morrison, who has been getting in good trouble for a very long time, since she was a little girl. We have Gary Carter Green, an Emmy-winning producer and founder of You Can't Beat Blue, along with MARY RARICK, who is a super connector and also a producer for You Can't Beat Blue. Candi King, who is running for office for delegate, Kenny Boydde, Deshaunda Jefferson, and Adele Jackson, who are running for local offices in Prince George's County. So we have a show that is going to be fantastic, and you're going to be uplifted after this show is over. But let me just get to some rules of the road. Say something if you see something. We're a friendly community here, but if you want to pick a fight, we're going to kick you out. But you can also have some great chats with Stare, Michelle, or Heidi. And then I don't want you to forget to stick around for the after chat. It'll go on for about 30 to 45 minutes, and it's a fantastic part of the show. And then you know what? We need a little help so you can support the show. Become a Patreon, and you can do it for as little as $5, $10, or $25 a month. It's value packed, and you get a lot of extra goodies when you do that. But it wouldn't be a Friday Power Lunch without a grassroots update from LUISA. So I'm going to bring up LUISA so that she can get us started with what we need to be focused on for the next week. So LUISA, come on up.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to see you, Finale. And I want to highlight a couple of key things that are happening in Virginia right now. So one of the things that we have been hearing on the doors and from the campaigns that not everyone may be aware of is we're having to already do a lot of ballot curing. A lot of people are getting mail-in ballots, and things have been changed since last year. So the good news is you don't have to have a witness signature. The bad news is you have to have a bunch of other things that people are missing. So I'm going to give us you guys the rundown on what is needed. So if you are having conversations with folks who are planning to vote by mail, they know that they need to check these boxes before they put that ballot back in the mail or drop it off. So the first one is they need to sign it. They always have to have a voter signature. The second is it needs to have their year of birth on it. They want to make sure that that is listed. Third, which is new, they need to have the last 4 digits of their social security number on the envelope. And then fourth, they need the date, right? So there's extra information. All of this needs to go on envelope B. And if it's not properly filled out, then the vote doesn't count. And so please, please, please make sure that anyone you're talking to, and they say, oh, I'm planning to vote by mail, let them know there's new information that's needed and they need to double and triple check before they submit it. Secondly, if you want to help, we already have ballot cure phone banks running because we want to make sure that all of these votes count, especially those that are coming from Democrats. So if you have some free time and you can jump on a phone bank to help talk to voters about curing their ballots, we need to start soon, right? We want to make sure we're getting anybody who's already submitted their ballot to cure that ballot ASAP, because as we know, on election day or closer to election day, we're going to have a deluge of ballots that need to be cured. So we want to get ahead of the game. The other thing that I want to highlight, of course, is our campaigns that need help. And if you were on this program last week, it's the same campaigns. So the good news is it's not a huge surprise. We've got just some key campaigns that either don't have natural groups of volunteers in their area, so they're a little behind on some of the things like knocking on doors, or they just got started a little late. Sometimes it's hard to find a good campaign manager or a good field director, and these campaigns are just a little behind the ball on getting rolling on some of those areas. So they just need a little bit more of our help. I'm going to put in the chat ways that you can get involved in these campaigns. One is Kimberly Pope Adams. Another is Nadarius Clark. And the third in the House is Karen Jenkins. Those are some of the most critical ones who could use some extra support getting in front of voters. And then on the Senate side, it's Monty Mason and Clint Jenkins. So I'll have those links in the chat. Some of the opportunities are canvases, but some are phone banks. So depending upon your availability, check in. Also, you can go to Mobilize and put in the name of the candidate to see what opportunities they have coming up for you to get engaged. But of course, as you know, I always like to push canvassing, and canvassing is critical right now. We have got to make sure that Democrats know that there's an election this year, that they know who is on their ballot. And it's a really great time to have conversations about those local races as well, which I know you're going to hear from some of those folks today, because they are not identified as Democrat or Republican on the ballot. So it's our opportunity to make sure voters know everybody up and down the ballot who they have the opportunity to vote for. So I'm going to put in the chat links to canvass for Monty Mason this coming weekend, as well as for Russet Perry, another critical Senate race. And then there's also an opportunity to canvass for Josh Cole this Sunday. And then next weekend, Astaire will put in some additional information here, but Network Nova is going to be doing a canvass on Friday, October 20th for Trish White Boyd, which is super exciting. She's running for Senate, and it looks like she has a much better chance to flip that seat than we originally thought. So it would be a great opportunity to go and talk to some voters who probably don't frequently get to talk to people at the doors. And then that Saturday, October 21st, Network Nova is hosting a canvass for Lily Franklin. So again, a great opportunity to get involved in a place that we don't always have a lot of people knocking on Democratic doors. I'm also going to put some opportunities for phone banking. So Kimberly Pope Adams has a phone bank coming up on Tuesday. On Friday, we have ongoing phone banks to build Democrat strength in rural Virginia with the Rural Ground Game. So it's always nice to have that opportunity to talk to folks who don't have these conversations every day. And then there's another phone bank that is on every Sunday evening. So an opportunity when you have time to jump on and make sure voters know what's happening in this upcoming election. Finally, I'll put in some information about writing to donors if that's something that is important for you and you would like to do that kind of writing. And then finally, I will put in some opportunities for donations. As you know, we're getting down to the wire, and we are going to need to make sure that our candidates are on TV, are on radio, really are getting their names out there in whatever ways possible so that voters know who to support during the elections. I will also note that I just got a text message from Barbara Favola, which is why I'm dinging over here. And I was asking her, well, who from your perspective on the Senate side most needs help? And Barbara says the folks that she thinks most need help are Monty Mason, Clint Jenkins, and Joel Griffith. Joel Griffith is in the same area as Josh Cole. So for anyone going down to canvass for Josh Cole, you will also hopefully be hitting doors for Joel Griffith. So please, those are those three top Senate seats. And as we know, the Senate brick wall is so critical for us being successful in holding back problematic legislation that is coming out of the governor's office. So we want to make sure that we're holding the Senate absolutely. And those are going to be the three key races. So that's what I got for you, Finale.
Thank you, Louisa. That was quite a lot. My hope is that people have their pens and paper, and whether it's electronic, but you're taking notes on where you can take action. Because we hear a lot about Republicans and Glenn Youngkin dropping money in, but money isn't nearly as powerful as our action. So that's why we have to get out there and knock doors, make phone calls. We can make the difference. We're way more valuable than $1 right now.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that we always want to remind folks. Democrats win on the doors. Democrats don't win on news media. Yes, it's important that we're there. We can't not be present, but where we have the strongest impact is in field and talking to folks, whether it's an actual canvas or going to events where people show up to let them know, whether it's a farmer's market, whether it's a fall festival, for example. So we really just need to make sure that we are reminding everyone we know that it's election season, and now is the time to be voting. And we're getting very close to early voting too for now.
Yeah, we are, Louisa. And you mentioned rural, and I want to just bring up Rural Ground Game for just a minute. They're supporting more than 30 candidates right now. And so next week, starting October 14th, they're going to have a week in action, which means that folks on this phone call, it doesn't matter where you're from, can volunteer, you can canvas. If you're from anywhere, you can dial. So there's so many things you'll be able to participate in. I want people to pay attention to the chat and all the information that's in there. Why Rural Ground Game is so important is because they're supporting candidates. Some of them are going to win, and some of them are going to make progress. And some of them are going to set the stage where the win is just because you turned out more voters. And that is critical when it comes to our 2024 election. So there is something for everyone to do. And we just need everyone on this phone call today to figure out how you take action to be more important than a dollar.
Absolutely. And just for those of you who want to get more in the weeds, want to talk a little bit more about the strategy, we have a Virginia Grassroots Coalition meeting this Sunday at 6 p.m. I'll put information into the chat. If you want to join us, please just email me. I'll make sure you get the Zoom link if you're not already receiving all my emails anyway. And during that meeting, we'll talk primarily about the elections, but we are also starting to prepare for the legislative session. So if you have a particular issue that you are working on and legislation that you are hoping to advocate for, please make sure that you come to our meeting so that we can make sure that we can strategize together on some of that legislative advocacy.
That's fantastic. And Louisa, the final thing that I'll add as a tease, October 24th, we're working on Women Talking to Women. And our goal is to touch 100,000 women that evening to talk about how important it is for them to get out to vote and what it means to them. And so anyone around the country can participate in that history-making activity. So you know what? We're gonna win this thing, and it's gonna be because we're gonna save ourselves. So thank you, Louisa.
Absolutely. Thanks, Finale. And thank you all for all of the work you're doing to talk to voters in whatever way possible. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. So now I'm so excited to bring up our award-winning cast from You Can't Beat Blue, Gary Carter-Green and Mary Rarick. You guys have probably seen them if you watched a recording of You Can't Beat Blue. And we thought it would be really fun today to do a segment of You Can't Beat Blue on the Friday Power Lunch. And so, Gary, I'm going to let you sort of kick us off with how you came to You Can't Beat Blue and how Mary connected. And then we'll do a little short segment of You Can't Beat Blue.
I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you, Louisa. You Can't Beat Blue originated right in the midst of the pandemic. It wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the pandemic. You know, we were all stuck at home. We were all worried about the future, and we all happened to learn how to Zoom simultaneously. So I saw it as the perfect opportunity to connect our political minds from one coast to the other. So I went for it, and it's turned into this very fun, funny, completely new way to take in information to share with other people. Politics, culture, media, tech, all the things you're hearing on your television sets when you turn it on in the morning. And I use my entire bag of tricks as a television producer. I put in the editing, the graphics, the music, the sound effects, and it's what politics should be. It's lively, it's fun, sometimes it's fiery, a lot of laughs. And in the process, what we're doing at You Can't Beat Blue is we are turning each other into activists. The way I like to look at it is Democrats are a big tent party, and You Can't Beat Blue is right there in the middle of it, connecting everybody together. And Mary encouraged me from the get-go to do this. She was the first real champion of this project. So, of course, she was the first person that I reached out to when I wanted someone to be on camera with me. And Mary, I apologize publicly here in front of everybody for roping you into it 2.5 years ago, but you're still here with me and I love it.
It's been so much fun, Gary. I look back at, those conversations we had in the thick of COVID. I mean, this kind of replaced our coffee shop meetings, right? All those in-person meetings, this replaced that. And then we kind of invited the world to join us. And it went from those little conversations between the two of us where we're talking about goats to interviewing Jess Piper, who's been here on this show.
Oh, yeah.
And Liz Smith, Pete Buttigieg's political advisor. And then, oh my gosh, one of my favorite delegates who was running in Virginia. I got to talk to her and now I get to talk to her every day. So it's really evolved. It's amazing. In fact, we should definitely talk about what it looks like now.
All right. Well, that third person who's part of our roundtable, we have a number of different hosts. Finale is one of them. She joins us regularly, almost every week. Let's talk about something that I think everybody here is interested in, because there's a very dangerous situation coming our way in 2023. Generally an off voting year for the United States, unless you happen to live in beautiful Virginia, also known as Old Dominion, also known as the mother of presidents. I looked that up. I didn't know that. But there is a real threat, and Luisa was referring to it, a Republican trifecta. We've already got the Republican governor, Glenn Youngkin, in there, and the Republicans hold one chamber of the General Assembly, and this year they're going to try to take over the other. Now, should that happen, that is the Republican trifecta we should all be very worried about. Expect sweeping changes in Virginia, all heading in the wrong direction. Abortion, guns, climate. And this will embolden other states who don't have that trifecta to do the same thing. It's like we don't have enough to worry about already, but I have to wonder, will Virginia continue to be our great Virginia, or are we going to have to rename it Florida North? Finale, I toss that question to you. She's bewildered already, folks.
Okay, you know that when we do this show, I'm either bewildered, I'm either enlightened, or another B, because I can hardly take it. So today with that, I'm bewildered. But let me tell you what I think. Virginia is so important, and we are being watched by the entire country, if not the world, because we really are a bellwether for what we think will come in 2024, which is why it's so important for everyone to stay engaged. And no matter how big or small, every effort that you take, it will be important. Virginia is the only southern state right now where women have access to abortion. That's a really scary thing. And the thing that makes it even more scary is the fact that, Gary, you said Glenn Youngkin, if he wins, if he's able to sort of turn Virginia red, to your point, it will say that what's to come in 2024. And so we have to be really conscientious about that. So I think those are two of the really important reasons why Virginia is so important, is because it will continue to protect women, it will continue to protect voting, and it will be a bellwether that we are doing all the right things to set us up for 2024.
Absolutely. Mary, what do you say?
You know, one of the things that I love about Network Nova and You Can't Beat Blue is that not only do we get to talk about these things, but we do get to share ways that people can participate with us. And I love all the links that have been dropped into the chat, talking about ways that even people like me who live in Oregon can affect Virginia, the outcome in Virginia. We can do that. You Can't Beat Blue as a group has done that all over the country. And that gives me hope. I mean, that's one of the things, actually, you know, both of these groups, it lifts me up and gives me hope, because we know when we work together, we can win.
Mary, I know you were writing postcards. We were writing postcards for school boards in Virginia Beach. And that's one of the things that we can do. Phone banking, it doesn't matter where you are, which is why I'm so excited about the phone bank that's coming up on the 24th, Women Talking to Women. 100,000 phone calls that night is what the goal is. That would be history making for that to happen on one evening. And if I find out that there's history already happening with that, then we'll have to up the ante. But those are ways that we can make a difference across the country to show that Democrats are working together. And I think that's what's so important with You Can't Beat Blue, with all the things that we do, is that it doesn't matter where you are. We have to look at ourselves as one big group, one big powerful group. Simon Rosenberg always says, I'd rather be us than them. And so I think that's what I hope people walk away with from these conversations, is that it's so much better to be us than them. And we just have to be loud and proud about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we have a great teacher in Miss Margaret as well. She informs all of us. And I know that we're going to speak with her in just a moment. And I am so excited. And I met Margaret here at Network Nova. Finale, I know you know this story, but I'll share it with everybody. You know, when I first heard Miss Margaret speak here, I knew I wanted to tell her story in a documentary. And I looked at her and I just thought, that's the person we are all trying to be. Strong in the face of opposition, brave against tyranny, a risk taker, an educator, and an honest, powerful woman. She's lived her values even when it wasn't easy to do. And that is striking. And in telling her story as an activist, we can all remember what's great about this country. And it isn't that this country gets everything right. We know it doesn't get everything right, but it allows pathways for citizens to speak up when something is very wrong. And Miss Margaret in the documentary, she tells her story in terrific detail. It's just so stirring. I've had people in tears watching it. She paints her life in a way that just stays with you. And you walk away feeling a little bit more powerful, like you've got a little bit of Margaret Morrison now inside of you to pull from when you're feeling defeated. Just someone to just say, you know, look at all that Margaret Morrison stood for. If she can do that, I know I can do that too. And that's why I'm so excited to be a part of this show today.
So Gary, so with that, along with You Can't Beat Blue, you also do many documentaries. And so you've done The American Woman. And so we're going to let you take the floor and just spend another second about the documentary that you did, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to disappear and let you show your clip and have your say. So Mary and I,
we're going to the clip right now, right? This is the clip this is the documentary. It's called This American Woman, and it's all about Margaret Morrison. So please enjoy.
There was a camaraderie there that I'd never experienced with people who were white. So it was the first time, I guess, I'd been with that many white people in that large crowd that day. There was something happening there that was so beautiful. And then it all grew apart.
That's
the fire hoses, and that's the dogs. John Lewis, he put his body on the line to make sure that good trouble meant that trouble could be good if you're pushing for an ideal to perfect something, trying to make democracy work for everybody.
That was the teaser for This American Woman, featuring the story of Miss Margaret Morrison. It runs in full, just about 10 minutes, and you can see it at the You Can't Beat Blue channel on YouTube. And she's here with me right now. I cannot thank Network Nova enough for introducing me to Miss Margaret. I'm the person who's always screaming in the after chat, "Hi, Miss Margaret, I love you." And I absolutely do. Thank you for talking with me today, Miss Margaret.
Thank you for having me, all of you. You know, I'm part of your community and have been for at least a year and a half now, because you are so involved in perfecting a democracy that it's just unbelievable. So it's my pleasure to be here with you to talk about good trouble. And as I mentioned,
go ahead, please.
As I mentioned in the documentary, good trouble doesn't have to be bad, because it is bad, but bad in a good way is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, and we just saw the teaser, and in the larger documentary, we discussed that further. But when I first sent you the finished documentary and you watched it, can you tell me a little about what it brought up in you, what you felt?
Well, the first thought was, how did he take a casual 1-hour Zoom conversation that dealt with many things in addition to politics and John Lewis, and make it into this fantastic mini documentary. So, and then I shouldn't have been surprised because that's Gary Green, is what he does, right? So that was my first reaction to the documentary. The second, when you picked out, you called the events that we talked about and decided on one theme, and that was politics. It did bring back memories as if it were just happening a few days ago. And it's amazing how events in your life stay with you long after the events are over. But the feeling of exhilaration or the drama and the trauma involved in that still live inside you. And so you can't go anywhere and leave that behind because it's just a part of the progression of history. And so as I sit here today, 2023, I can still remember what occurred that Bloody Sunday in 1965. But the Bloody Sunday of 1965 was not an event all by itself. It traced its roots further back into history. And so you can't think about history without reviewing what did happen from 1619 to the Civil War, or what happened after the end of the Civil War to the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson. And you can't just forget that and Jim Crow laws without thinking about what happened in 1965. Well, actually 1954, with the desegregation. Took a little longer in some places, and you can't think about that without thinking about Bloody Sunday. So Bloody Sunday was an event, but it was a progressive trauma of Black people that had occurred over centuries. And so probably that's one reason why it remains inside me as if it were a living event. And I want to bring it back to Nova, because it's Nova who has the courage to understand the events and not run away from it, not believe that critical race theory is a fake at all, because we all have lived parts of it, and I have lived a lot of it. And Gary had asked me about, and Fennell also, about the zoo incident.
Oh, yeah.
Which was my first indication that the color of my skin was going to dictate the parameters of what I could do in my lifetime. And that was when I was 8. Didn't know at 8 that by 10, I knew that I couldn't go to the back of the bus. A little later, I knew that I couldn't go to the public library that was tax supported. Even later, I knew that I couldn't drink out of a certain fountain because it was for white. Then at the same time, I knew that I couldn't go to a department store and sit at a lunch counter. Well, I knew later that I couldn't do a lot of things. I couldn't go to a movie without going to the balcony. Then as I was graduating, actually from college, I knew that I couldn't go to the state-supported university. So this incident, these injustices flowed through my life, and I can't think of one without the other. But at the same time, I am aware of all of the advantages that I have had based on people fighting with me, getting into good trouble to undo some of the damages have been inflicted, not just on Black people, but on all kinds of marginalized people. So.
You mentioned the zoo incident, and we talk about that in detail in the documentary. You had heard that you were 8, you had heard your older sisters might be going to the zoo, and you wanted to go, but it was your mother who sat you down at 8 years old and passed along tough information that I don't know, many 8-year-olds that would be able to process that. What did your mother say about you being able to go to the zoo?
You're correct. And although I understood what she said in my childlike way, it was what she said and how she said what she told me that left me, even until today, I must admit, I've never been to the Memphis Zoo. I could have gone once I had left Memphis and gone back, but it was something about what she said. She instilled in not just me, but my sisters as well, that the quality of who you are has nothing to do with the color of your skin. That if you can't go to the zoo on any day, then you can't go at all.
Yeah.
Because the zoo was open 6 days out of the week for white people, 1 day for Black people. And if the 1 day, I think at the year that I was at 8, it was on Tuesday. Later, they changed it to Thursdays. If an event of importance happened to have occurred on the Black day, you couldn't go then either, because that was also given over to white people. And when I left the home that day, because I had slipped away from school, 3rd grade, Miss Lillian Larry was my teacher. I don't know whether she knew I was missing or not. It was the last day. It was a lot of excitement and everything. But
and you were expecting to go to the zoo. You thought you were heading to the zoo.
Indeed, I knew that I was not going to be stuck in that school, in that classroom, and my sisters are at the zoo. There was no way that was going to happen. And that's when I explained, none of us can go to the zoo.
Well, you talk a lot about John Lewis in the documentary. Well, first of all, let me just say, in the hour conversation, history came to life for me listening to you talk about your experiences. And I treasure the fact that I now have an hour-long conversation recorded on my computer of you talking about your life. It's such a learning tool, unlike any other. John Lewis was there for the Selma March to Montgomery, 1965. You were there. You talk about it in detail. Can you describe your thoughts on John Lewis? Can you sort of sum up the kind of man he was and what he stood for?
I first saw John Lewis on the ground in Selma after being beaten by the police. I didn't know his name at that point. I didn't recognize that person as John Lewis, although I was aware of a man named John Lewis who was a part of the movement from the Nashville days. So that was my first inkling of who John Lewis was. Later, it dawned on me, John Lewis was a special kind of person who was willing to take his body and put it on the line in trying to perfect the United States of America, for making them live up to the promise of justice and equality for all. Not many people can do that. And although he was not the only one, he was the one that I saw on the ground that day that left me with a visceral feeling of just disgust, and I cried because it was so hurtful what I saw witnessing on that screen, the horses and the water hoses, and it reflected all of the things I knew about life because I had grown up in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm aware of what evil can do to a group of people. I'm also aware of what good-natured people can do to help relieve some of the suffering. And so it became really an honor when I was at John Lewis's home many years later, and we were talking about, actually, it was the December of 2016. Trump had just been elected president. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. It's like I'm in a dream that how many Americans believe that a person of that caliber was the person to lead anything, not just the United States of America. How could 70 million plus people feel that he had what it took in all respects, in terms of knowing what a democracy was, knowing about a constitution, knowing about anything, and yet people voted for him, and people will vote for him again.
Sure.
Which brings me back to Nova. You don't know what you guys are doing. You are helping so many people understand the dangers we face if you don't stop being silent. You're making people come out. You're encouraging people to come out. That's why I keep coming to your program every week. You didn't invite me, I invited myself. Thank you very much. But it's so encouraging to know there are a group of people who believe, like me, that there is more to life than hatred and evil and getting back at somebody. And I guess it's breathtaking to realize I'm not in this by myself.
No, you're not.
A whole lot of people who are striving to perfect something that we've known has been broken since it was written. We know that the words all men are created equal had limited meaning. It only applied to a few people, didn't apply to most of us at that time. And so as we go year by year, election by election, weeding out the people who don't belong and putting in the people who do, like the ones you've had on this program, the ones who are running for office, the ones who are trying to, it's good trouble, because good trouble means not just out in the street protesting, but good trouble means knocking on doors and writing postcards and making phone calls and helping each other and being in a community and spreading education and knowing what it is, what the meaning of a democracy is. And it's not just voting one time and forgetting about it the next year and the next because, well, I already voted. It's an ongoing, it's not a problem because voting is never a problem, but it's an ongoing series of being involved year in and year out, from primaries and local elections.
Right.
Wow. And it's never ending. Justice is never won and done. Justice remains a continuous motion of what you do. I don't understand how all of you get the energy, because every week I see you pushing that envelope.
You know what? It's from people like you. It's from hearing stories about from people who have lived the life that that we're trying to emulate and have stood up and fought. And we see inequity all around us, and we sometimes feel like, well, I don't know what to do. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, look, you know what? In 1965, I experienced this, and this is what it did for me. And I want to pass that wisdom on to you. And I think that that's really a source of what so much goes on here at Network Nova. It is just so wonderful. And I think it comes from people listening to other people who have had those stories. And the word inspiration is tossed around so much these days, but you truly are an inspiration to me. And we spent an hour talking with you. It was Mary, FINALE, and you and me together. And someday I'll post the entire hour interview. But, you know, I think sometimes people don't get to see how salty you can be. And there is this little piece that didn't make the documentary. And I just wanted to share it because every time Mary and FINALE and I watch it, we crack up. So take a look. This is a little outtake from the documentary. I think you're going to enjoy it. So often when people speak with you, they speak about history. And of course, your history is an incredibly impressive and a wonderful learning experience. What do you do for fun?
I listen to rap. I like Beyonce. I can't do the moves like she can, but I do like the stories embedded in her. Yeah. Remember the one like "Give Me Freedom"? I need freedom too, and she said that. So I like Legend and Common.
So if I offered to do a TikTok Beyonce dance video with you, would you go for it?
Oh yes, I could put you to shame.
It would not be hard. It would not be hard.
And I'm coming there, and we're going to do that TikTok video. And then Mary and FINALE and I are going to get in the car. We're going to take you to the Memphis Zoo because you haven't been there yet, and you need to go.
So,
well, first of all, I didn't remember what I said.
I bet you didn't. I knew it.
And I believe everybody on the program He put that in. I didn't do that. I didn't say that.
So I want to thank that was fantastic, Gary. Thank you so much for showing that. I'm gonna get us back on track. And Miss Margaret, thank you so much. I never ever get enough of listening to you. Gary, thank you so much. I'm gonna ask Robin just to play the last clip, and then we'll go right on into our next segment. But I think it will be wonderful to hear what Margaret has to say about what we ought to do moving forward. So thank you, Miss Margaret. Thank you, Gary.
And so when I think of a John Lewis, I think of him in the middle of Black Lives Matter Street in DC, just before his death. And visualize him wearing his hat with 1619 on one side and Black Lives Matter, I believe, on the other. And he's standing there with a crowd of people around him, primarily white young people, because they admired him too.
We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand.
When I think of John Lewis, in the end, I think of him in that street, Black Lives Matter, passing a baton to that group of youngsters out there, saying, here, get in good trouble. Follow my lead. Get in good trouble. Perfect our democracy. Take it from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Miss Margaret. We appreciate you. So we'll move right into our next segment with Candi King. And Candi, we'll bring Candi up. Candi is running for re-election. Hi, Candi. How are you? I'm so happy to see you.
Hi, it's so great to be back on the Power Lunch.
It is always great to have you on the Power Lunch. Now, you're running for re-election, and I'm going to let you take it away. So tell us what's happening, tell us what you need, and tell us what has to be done.
Here's what's happening. First, thank you all so much. The fact that you are here today tells me that you know how much is at stake this election season. So we have all 140 seats in the General Assembly up for re-election in the House and Senate. And we have to build that blue brick wall to block Youngkin and his cronies from turning Virginia into the next Texas or the next state where women will be denied health care. So here is where we are with our election. We have in Prince William County some of the most critical races happening in the Commonwealth, not just at the state level where we have Josh Thomas, who is a phenomenal candidate running in a really purple seat that we can win if we get out and support him. But we also have Travis Nemhart, who is a phenomenal young candidate running in another must-win seat for us. Because the difference between us winning the majority is the difference between a Virginia where our daughters, our sisters, the women that we love, the people who we love will not have access to the health care that they need if Youngkin has his way. But we also have phenomenal local races happening in Prince William County, including the potential to have the first Black woman as the chair of our board of supervisors. We have the phenomenal Deshandra Jefferson, who can tell her own story, but we have the most diverse county in Virginia. And with Democratic majorities, we've been able to do so much to enrich the lives of our very diverse community. But all of that is on the line if we don't support candidates like Deshandra, our local board, and Democrats who are fighting to keep Prince William County blue. What does that mean? For those of us who care about reproductive freedom, I am the chair of the Reproductive Freedom Policy Committee in the House Democratic Caucus. If we don't win in Prince William, we could find ourselves in a position where we have these horrible candidates turning Prince William County, the most diverse in the Commonwealth, into a sanctuary city for these far right zealots who don't believe that women and their doctors can make healthcare decisions. And that trickles down to great candidates like Josh Thomas and Travis Nemhart in must-win seats. And then finally, FINALE, because I won't leave myself out and all of the other great candidates running in Prince William County, we don't take any votes for granted. We can't leave any votes on the table because right now, Governor Youngkin is purging our voter rolls. Our Democratic at the state level, at the federal level, officials have asked the Justice Department to look into what the Department of Elections is doing with our voting records. They know that they can't win with their ideas. They know that their policy is disastrous. So they are stooping to the level of doing things that we saw in Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, 50, 60, 70 years ago. They are purging the voter rolls and saying, whoopsie, just made a mistake. Well, the mistake could cost us our future. So I can't understate how critical this election is and how we need to bring all that Network Nova power to Prince William County for this powerful pack of people we have running.
I could not agree more. And I just want to go back and underscore a couple of the things that you said about how important this election is. 140 seats are up. No single action that any person can do is not enough. Every single thing we do is important. So when we're talking about these dials and phone banks and canvassing and postcards, every effort is important. And frankly, we need every elected official to come to the table. When we're talking about kicking off phone banks, when we're talking about kicking off canvases, when we're talking about rural communities, we need all of our elected officials to show up so that we demonstrate that we are together in this. And so I love your words about how powerful it is for all of us to show up. And I think that we just cannot take these last days that we have for granted, and every effort will have to matter in Prince William County and every other county across Virginia. I just think
is it me or did we lose FINALE?
No, I think we lost FINALE.
Well, we lost FINALE. There she is. You're back.
FINALE, you froze for a moment. You froze for a moment. Do you want to bring on Desandra and Adele and Kenny? Let's bring them on so they can join the conversation.
Yes. Hi, Adele. How are you? Desandra, hi, and Kenny. Hello. Good. I don't know where you guys lost me, but I think the point that I was making is that every single effort that we can make, every single official that we can bring into these dials and campuses will be increasingly important. So Desandra, I'm going to start with you because I know that you're doing some groundbreaking work in terms of running for chair. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you're running and why?
Well, thank you for inviting me to join you today. It's an honor. And I remember years ago when Network Nova was just getting started. It's amazing how much you women have accomplished. I mean, it shows the power when people get together, what we can do. So my name is Deshandra Jefferson. I'm the Democratic nominee for chair of the Prince William Board of County Supervisors. I have been politically active, for a very long time. I started my career as a reporter, and I had a chance to cover politics. I lived in New York, went to school there. But not a native. I had a chance to cover politics in Jackson, Mississippi, and it was very different from the blue New York that I was coming from. It was hard to stay objective when I saw Republicans were trying to create a personhood amendment. There was an in-run around Roe versus Wade at that time. And there was a voter ID law that they were trying to put in place, which I didn't fully understand. And it was the late Bill Miner, who was a reporter at the Jackson Clarion Ledger, who explained how suppressive it really was. And Mississippi really is a breeding ground for a lot of the policies, conservative policies that you see. We now have a voter ID law. I was also very frustrated, even though I didn't vote in primaries. I was not a registered Democrat because we had registration in states like New York, but I identified with Democrats and always voted blue. But I was very frustrated with Democrats, how we were voting, how we had written off in certain parts of the country, certain types of voters. And so that's how I got involved in politics. So I put the camera down, the TV news camera down, and I got into political communication. Since then, I've worked in Capitol Hill. I too have had the honor of working with the late John Lewis when I was on the Hill, and I was at the 50th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery marches. And I have also worked at the DNC, and I've helped out on several local races. For me, running was a culmination of my community service. It was putting what I believed into practice, and it is hard to run. It is very hard to run. And I tell people, you've always got to vote. It amazes me in Virginia how we have elections every year, and we still have people who are like, there's an election this year. Got election every year. Local races are particularly critical because we touch your lives so intimately. The taxes that you pay, how much is allotted to public safety, making sure our schools have the funding that they need. How are your communities zoned? This is all local level politics. And again, there are so many people who don't understand why these races are critical.
Yeah, so just I think that's really critical. And I think the important thing here is to be able to tell those stories. And so when you're a local politician, you have to tell the story of how the further down the ballot, the closer it is to your friends that you need. I want to jump over to Kenny and Adele and give them an opportunity to talk a little bit about their races before we have to close out the show. So Kenny, why don't you tell us a little bit about your run and what you need?
Sure.
Thanks.
And again, thank you, Finale, and thank you, ladies at Network Nova. It's great to be with you again. I know we go back many, many, many years back to 2017. So it's always homecoming to see all of you and see, like Deshandra said, just how much you've grown and how much you do in Virginia. So thank you for that. So my race is critical. I have the flip seat on the Board of Supervisors here in Prince William County. I unseated a Republican opponent, incumbent, 4 years ago by just 322 votes. And this seat is the one they're coming after this year on the board. And so they're throwing everything they can at this seat. And so we're doing everything we can to push back. We have phone banks, we had canvases. I have a canvas coming up on the 28th of this month with Abigail Spamberger. Hope to see a lot of people there. We have phone banks every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. We're pulling out all the stops, because if we're able to defend my seat, we'll be able to make sure that people like Deshandra win and become the chair. We'll be able to make sure that we keep our majorities on the Board of Supervisors and the school board. And the last thing I'll say about it is, in addition to what everything Deshandra said, and all those are key important issues, schools, zoning, taxes, what have you, we also appoint members to our library board. And I can tell you, just in the last year, there have been people have been trying to ban books in our public libraries, not even school libraries. I'll let Adele talk about that and all the stuff going on there. But in our public library, just a few blocks from my house, where my kids go and get books, there was someone trying to ban a visual memoir because it's from a trans person. We have people trying to ban books that are about real Black history, especially as it pertains to Virginia. So these things are touched even by our local elected officials, because we're the ones that appoint people, these library boards, to either be that blue brick wall and say, no, we will teach our real history, or yeah, no, we'll start to do undemocratic things like ban books and ban history. So that's what's on the line here. So I hope you can all join us in these next 24 days, but who's counting?
Yeah, but who's counting? Adele, thank you. Thank you so much, Kenny. Adele, let's talk about the school board.
All right. Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you, Deshandra, for connecting me. This was just a glorious lunch, and I just feel re-energized listening to Miss Margaret, and it's so nice to see some familiar faces and just be here for the discussion. I just want to just quickly talk about who I am. I'm a special educator. I teach part-time in a neighboring district. I think I'm on 17 years of teaching. I'm also a former social worker, so I devoted my entire career to public service. And I believe that my master's degree in special ed and like my experience as a special ed parent and a special ed student gives me a unique lens that I brought to the school board. And Brentsville, if you don't know, is home to 19 wonderful schools from Manassas through Nokesville, Bristol, all the way to Haymarket. And the last 3 years, my school board inbox has been a metaphor for the division of this great nation. So I govern from a viewpoint of listening to all leaderships and to be inclusive and respectful and to lead with love. And I've been very fortunate to work on this board who works collaboratively to bring substantial change, from raises, sustainability initiative, to hiring more staff, to restructuring special ed, to special ed department chairs, to more preschools, to increasing funding for economically disadvantaged. You know, the new collaborative relationship I have with Dr. McDade, the new superintendent, has just been extremely fortunate. And before I go, I'm going to highlight one of the board members who's a full-time teacher who wanted to be here. I'll put in her information. Lisa Zagapur is running in Coles. And I just want to say, the people in this room are not the only ones who are worried and concerned about the recent politicizing of schools, the fundamental decrease of empathy and tolerance for all students, and the lack of support for inclusion and equity, and the attacks on our educators. I believe that this is a philosophy that many of us have that we're just not all discussing. I also want to say that the progress that this school board has made is fragile and new and being fundamentally challenged. So like I want to echo what Kenny and DeShonda and Candi, Delegate King said, is that we need help getting our message out. I'm in a very diverse political area, so I need people to research their candidates. If you research, you can learn very quickly where my opponents stand. And just thank you so much for having me, and I'll put in all my information and in the chat. So.
Thank you so much, Adele. I really appreciate it. Listen, it's been a fantastic show. All of the information for Delegate King, for DeShandra, for Kenny, for Adele is in the chat. Take that information. The chat is loaded with information today because there is so much to do over the next 24 days, and we need everyone on this call today, your friends, your family, call them up. They owe you. We've got work to do over the next 24 days. So thank you all so much for being on the show today. I hope that everyone enjoyed the show. Let me just say that to support the show, become a patron of the show. You can do that for as little as $5, $10, or $25 a month. It's value packed if you're a patron. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, social media, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You'll get a recap email of everything that's happened on the show today, which has been fantastic, by the way. I'd also like to give a thank you to Robin Warner, who's our show wizard, Sarah Calhoun, who is our ambassador of buzz, Heidi Dragnet, our social media diva, Dennis Orsinger, who is our graphic designer, Michelle McKinney, our community builder, and our content concierge extraordinaires, Julie Galdo, Albina McHell, and Sally Reinhold. It's been a great show today, and I hope that you all will stay for the after chat, which will be just as fabulous as the show. So Robin, roll the credits.